Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Shomler, and this is the Desperately Dating Podcast. Joining me is my wonderful and wise stepmom, Karyn. Hello, Karyn. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
We are in the midst of a global pandemic. What the heck?
I know.
What the hell?
I never thought I'd be saying those words.
It's not really. I'm laughing, but I don't really feel like laughing internally. I don't even. Here's how low it's gotten, actually. Look at what I'm wearing. For people out there.
It's a good look for you.
I look like the frattiest guy. So for people that don't know, I'm wearing a baseball jersey, which is the only jersey I own, by the way. It's a Portland Pickles jersey. Shout out to them. I have a backwards baseball hat on. I look like a frat douche. Now, maybe a friendly frat guy.
True, yes.
Maybe douche
definitely.
was a harsh word.
That is harsh.
But still, it is comfy.
Well, likewise, I can share that this is the first time I've had makeup on for like a month and a half. So you should count yourself as honored.
You know what I did yesterday for the first time ever? I put on moisturizer on my face.
Whoa.
I didn't know it was a thing. Liz was like, she's like, let me help you. Living with a girl, by the way, really makes your life so much better because she notices all the things that I'm doing wrong.
Works on your grooming habits. That's good. Yeah.
Oh man, I on most of my on pretty much for the most part on podcasts, I'm like, I want to not talk about coronavirus. I want to avoid it all. Mm-hmm. Like on Strong Opinion Sports, I think most people listen to that show to get away from Corona. To
Absolutely.
Like they don't want to hear about. So I just avoid it. But actually, I think on this podcast, we should talk about it because I think people. It's incredibly this is a show that I think is incredibly relevant to people and how they're living their lives right now. Mm-hmm. Like we were going to do a topic, I think, about what it would be like to date. Do you have the same goals? Yada, yada. But like we were kind of talking about it, and it didn't make any sense to do a topic like that because long-term goals are out the window right now.
Yeah.
Because like what's normal? Nothing's fucking normal. I don't know. Seems weird.
No, I agree. And I think everybody, too, is kind of overdosing on the news and all that. Like nobody really wants to hear anything more about coronavirus from us.
No.
Except for perhaps how it relates to dating.
That's what I think is the key here is, I mean, can you imagine being single right now?
Oh my gosh.
How do you start? How do you date anybody? How do you exist? I'm having a hard time and I have companionship all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I like my own company pretty well, but that would be pretty extreme, to even have any opportunity to have human contact off the table. I can't imagine what that would be like.
Well, it's weird, right? Like I live as I learned when we got quarantined, I learned that my normal life basically is quarantine all the time anyway. I work from home. I never leave. Like one of my ex-girlfriend and I she literally got mad at me all the time for like how little I wanted to leave the house because I'm like, I have everything I want. I'm happy. But I will say, even me as an introvert who lives my life normally that way is like, can I please fucking go-karting? Can I please get out of the house? Can I go do anything other than stay in my house? I want to get out. I want to go hiking. I can't even do that.
I know. Isn't that interesting, though, how, because I feel like my life is a little bit similar in that, I do spend a lot of time at home. I'm kind of a homebody, self-admitted. Yeah. But once that opportunity is off the table, then it kind of makes you want it more.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I don't know why. It's like the forbidden fruit.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I want it. I can't have it.
Yeah.
Back to dating. I mean, what would you... Do you think people are going on dates? I don't think not, but I don't know.
Well, I guess before we go right in there, one other thought that I wanted to share was I think in this time that's so uncertain and kind of scary, I think it's a very human impulse to want companionship. So I don't think just because we're in these strange times that the desire for love and connection goes away. I think if anything, it might even be more prominent for people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
And I think that urge to find some companionship of some sort in these scary times is okay. I think it's okay to seek that out. What's that going to look like, though? Because it's not like most people, if you're following the rules anyway, are going to be going out and going on dates like, we did before. So it seems like it's pretty obvious that this is going to have to be, online or some kind of distant connection.
I almost wonder, you've talked about in the past, Mr. Right for right now.
Mr. Right now. Yep.
Yes. And maybe that's what people need is, I don't know, like we've talked in the past on this show about how like the dangers of talking to someone a ton online, and how when you meet them for the first time in person, it can be incredibly disappointing, or you build it up so much it's not quite right. And my fear is that's going to happen to a lot of people this time. But maybe that's okay too. Maybe all they need is brief companionship or something to get through now.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's totally okay, to date, to have some kind of relationship, even if it is virtual. But then, like you said, be prepared that if and when you do meet that person live, you may just not feel that spark or that connection, or like it's going to continue on to a live relationship.
Would you think it's important for people to like give themselves permission to have a relationship like that? Maybe it's just a flash in the pan. Maybe it is just during the time of Corona, having companionship, having someone to talk to, and maybe not. Maybe it does flourish into something great afterward. But if all it is because my dad, we were at your house the other day for dinner. It's funny. I've seen almost nobody. I've seen my dad like so much since we got quarantined because I love hanging out with him. And he said, everyone thinks that their number one job right now is to do this or do that. And my dad was like, no. When you're quarantined during a pandemic, your number one goal is to survive, to get through it.
Yeah.
And if having someone to talk to gets you through it, that's part of survival right there.
I agree. And, I know that I've been on the record a lot before in the past saying that I think it's totally fine to have a Mr. or Ms. right now. However, that being said, I think the same rules apply virtually as they do in real life dating. And that's that you got to make sure that everybody's on board with that. So, you have to be straight up about it. So if the other party is thinking, investing a lot and thinking this is going to be a big long-term thing, and the other person is seeing them as just a Mr. or Ms. right now, that's a problem,
Well, I think maybe, I don't think you have to, if you're a person who is dating or starting a relationship right now, and it's like, say you're on Tinder and you're swiping and you're talking and texting every day, you don't have to necessarily close the door to it being a long-term thing.
Yeah.
But you have to be realistic. Like, for example, if I was dating someone right now and we were texting, yada, yada, I'd probably tell them, hey, like, maybe this does work. Maybe this works. But let's be honest, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
And if all this is you and I have someone to talk to for now, that's great. We can try and see if it does work afterward. But just so you know, I'm prepared and willing for it to not be something long-term. And I hope you are too. Like, maybe it's less, you don't have to close the door, but make sure the expectations are clear so they know what they're getting into, what you expect from it. Just get everybody on the same page. It's so huge. Communication is so massively important right there.
Yeah, I think that's really, it's a lot of respect. If you make it obvious, make it, what do I want to say, prominent that it is an if. Neither one of you is going to be able to tell for certain until you actually meet in real life, unless perhaps the relationship is just going to continue as a virtual relationship. And if that's satisfactory to both partners, well, then there you go. I mean, I guess there are plenty of people that do long distance relationships where they don't see each other very often. It's kind of what we're talking about.
It's kind of exactly what it is, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Yeah. But we talked about long distance relationships in the past. It was really huge. This gave a big breakthrough, I think, to my girlfriend now. We were talking about her ex and how they kind of had a long-term. They basically had a long-distance relationship, even though they lived in the same city, and how when she realized all that a long-term relationship is the promise of intimacy someday, or like the promise of having a more deeper, more meaningful in-person relationship someday.
Somewhere in the future.
Yeah, and I don't know that necessarily, if you're having a relationship during Corona, maybe there's not necessarily the same promise to have something long-term in the future, because if like, a long-distance relationship, you would assume it started where they knew each other, or they've seen each other in person before.
That's true.
They've had interaction face-to-face. If you met someone on Tinder today and you're both quarantined at your house, you've never met them face-to-face, I would think, unless they're someone you knew from high school. But I don't know that there's necessarily the same promise as even a normal long-term relationship would have, that eventually we're going to not be long-term or be long-distance, excuse me. It's a weird time. It's a weird, very unique
It's
time to
really
date.
weird. Yeah. I mean, just to go back to the long-distance relationship thing, too, I think there are probably people that are in that position where maybe they met someone, went on one date or went on a couple of dates, and now all of a sudden, things have changed and they can't continue dating in person. And so they've been kind of thrust into a, a long distance
Like
relationship.
they went on 2 dates and it was going well.
Right.
So now they're like, ah.
Yeah. So now it's kind of stalled out. But I think you're right. I think it can be absolutely fine for a relationship just to be that, just to be for this period of time. I don't think there's any shame or weirdness there, as long as everybody's on the same page about it and doesn't have unrealistic expectations. But
it's interesting. You said this earlier. You said everything is heightened during this time.
Yeah.
And we're always going to remember. Like there are certain movies. I watched I Am Legend the other day.
I did too.
And it's going to, I watched it because of you.
Oh, okay. Good man.
You told me, and I was like, I saw it on Netflix. I was like, Karyn said it was good. So I watched it. And I'd already kind of known the story, but I will have a definite new relevance to me. And I will always kind of pair that time with I Am Legend, with Will Smith. And there are all kinds of little things that we're going to, at least I'm always probably going to identify with Corona because of everything's more memorable, everything's more heightened. And the same thing goes with a relationship. If you are dating someone now, whether it works or not, you're always going to remember, oh yeah, I was with such and such, or this happened or that happened, because it's something we're going to talk about forever. We're going to tell our grandkids, at least I'm going to tell my grandkids about coronavirus and we got stuck in the house and yada yada. And so the person you're with or the person you're talking to or whatever is going to be someone I would think that you're going to always have a heightened memory of because of coronavirus.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I can think about other, tragedies that I've lived through, and that's true. I associate whoever I was with at the time with that, for good or bad.
That's actually the word tragedy. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that yet, but everybody's collectively going through a tragedy.
Yeah, at the same time. It's just crazy. And I think people are lonely and scared, and and there's the future is really uncertain in so many ways, that I think it's a very human trait that we want to find human connection, in some way and have some comfort in that.
It's even weirder though too, because like often during a tragedy, like a great example is when Zane died, my brother died. I've heard people, I don't know if this is your experience too, but people have told me like when you go through a really traumatic experience, sometimes it's better to not be in a relationship because you're so much of a mess, right? If you're going through a tragedy, it's better to have your own space in your own head to kind of figure your own stuff out. I don't know that this is even that, because it's such a, it's not like a thing that's over. Like when your brother dies, it's an ongoing thing you're dealing with, but the event happened and it's past, so you can recover from it. We're still in the middle of it, and we don't know when it's going to end, let alone the recovery process afterward. Does that make sense? It's very like, I don't even know if what I'm saying makes sense. I really kind of want your input and your thoughts on that, but there's the timeline here is totally weird and just totally unique.
That's all true. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking back because I lost a brother too.
Yeah.
And I was married at the time. And I think living through a tragedy, when you're in a relationship, can really expose cracks that are in the relationship. Even though I was married, I felt pretty alone during that time. And I think that speaks volumes as to the viability of that relationship. Should you try and get into a relationship when you're going through a tragedy? I don't know. Like I said, we were talking about how it can bring comfort.
I guess that's true. Like maybe if Zane had died and I found somebody and it was a fling, but it helped me, that it's not necessarily bad, Yeah,
I don't think it's necessarily bad. Yeah, as long as you keep it kind of in the right place, keep it in perspective on what it could or could not be. But then I was just going to compare, that experience with now we're in this weird, worldwide tragedy that I'm living through, and I'm in a really good relationship with your dad, and it's a completely different experience. I don't feel alone and lonely. I feel supported and loved, and that's a lot of comfort. Then I wouldn't want to deny anyone that.
Yeah, so when it's good, it's really helpful.
Yeah. When it's bad, it's pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel bad for you. Can't go on dates. You can't do like not physically go on dates. I don't know. It's sad.
I think it would be pretty risky to date too. I'm just going to say that side of it, and that because our feelings are so heightened, and everything's uncertain, and I think there could be a risk to people developing, really intense feelings.
Well, because you're emotionally vulnerable right now.
Yeah, like everything's really heightened and at the surface. So I think that is something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Kind of. Yeah, everything. Yeah, just going back to even memorable. Everything is just at a dialed up to 11.
Yep, exactly.
And you're like, everyone kind of needs comfort and support. We're like all weeping babies, so walking around like,
yeah,
I'm a mess. Oh, you are too.
Yeah. Well, and then there, if somebody is kind and comforting and nice to you, then you might want to go all in. And then what if
because it feels so good.
Yeah. So.
Like when a dog is abused. And then you give them just normal dog food, they're so happy. Like, or just like normal, like everything that maybe isn't even that great feels even better than normal because they've been abused. Same thing with when you're in such a bad place or really struggling, any kind of affection or any kind of positive interaction feels way better, heightened, way better than it normally would, because you're such in a low space needing that.
Yeah, you're kind of starving for it. Starving for connection in a scary time.
Well, can you imagine? I know people that are in their apartments. Like, I know people, because we live in Portland, right? I have friends of mine who have jobs in Seattle. They can't go to work. They can't see their friends from work. Their families are back here in Portland. They're alone in a studio apartment in Seattle, and they can't leave. And they literally crave human attention. They crave human interaction. They want to talk to people. They're getting sick of talking to their pet rock. They're like, I hate this so much. I painted my room for the 5th time today. Like, there's only so many times you can go around it. Like, oh man,
isolation gets to people.
Yeah,
I think that's been well studied. Yeah.
What's Stockholm syndrome? Is that anything related to this?
No, that's more when you've been kidnapped and you start identifying,
right.
with your kidnappers. Yeah. So hopefully that's not going on. But
that's horrible.
I know.
What's the one where you go crazy because you're like stuck in the same? I don't know. Stockholm syndrome is so far off. Liz, leave it in. Liz, if you're editing, I want that in there because that's hilariously wrong. And I think it's funny. Oh my.
Well, you just think about, there's stories of, prisoners that have been in solitary confinement and how it makes them go completely nuts. Yeah. And actually, that movie, Back to I Am Legend, he goes kind of nuts.
He does.
Being all by himself.
He couldn't even talk to people when, like, I think one of my favorite, there's a scene in the movie where Shrek is playing on the TV, and he knows every single line of the movie by heart. Like, he's repeating it with the movie. It's like, damn, this dude has done nothing for like 3 years. Like, he's really
messed
bored.
Up.
Yeah, like, fuck.
If Shrek is your only companionship, wow.
Do you have anything else you want to say about this topic?
No, I mean, I think that we've worked through it pretty well. I think it is possible to date in, this weird climate that we're in. I think we've went over what some of the pitfalls might be. But, no shame on anyone for needing companionship in a really difficult time.
And I will say, if you're struggling or you're feeling lonely, fuck, you're not the only one.
Right?
I think everybody is. And I think everybody's struggling. And so if you're struggling, it's totally okay. And you have me, Zach Shomler, you have my permission to be struggling.
Yeah, it's okay to be a mess right now. As your dad said, just focus on surviving. Don't worry about thriving. Yeah. Which I think it's a little bit tricky right now in a lot of media and stuff, stories about people wanting to, how they should be making them feel like they should be doing a lot of really productive stuff. And I just don't think that's realistic right now.
Yeah. Well, I've never talked about content my dad's made. This is maybe a sign that his content's getting really good. Is he made a video of like the 7 things, I think it's called like 7 things you need to do or need to know to get through. And then he jokingly says your first pandemic.
Yeah.
But the number one thing he says is everyone's trying to be productive. Because he's been really helpful to me with this. He's like, no. Your number one job right now is to survive. Not to get a ton of shit done, not to read 30 books, not to do the goals you've had on your wall forever. Survive. Whatever that looks like for you. And then deal with the other stuff. But when he told me that, it gave me permission to like, oh, I want more ice cream because I'm tired and sad. It's okay to have more ice cream. Like, and I needed that because I've been genuinely struggling. So it's okay to be struggling.
Yeah, and it's okay to look for companionship to help you get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, my name is Zach Shomler. Thank you so very much for tuning in. That has been my wonderful and wise stepmom, Karyn. Thank you so much, and have a great day.